Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Africa Asia podcast. It's very nice to be back another week, and tonight we have a guest, and it's quite exciting to be doing this. Our guest will be introducing himself a bit more. We're also with Chris, as always. Chris, take it over from here, and please carry on.
Yes, Is it good afternoon or good evening to our viewers and listeners? I'm your resident host, Chris Mwabi, by now you know me. I'm advocate with the High Court of Kenya, and I like to talk and listen. Today, our guest is very interesting. I'll let him do the introduction. He'll introduce himself. So maybe you can start us off by telling us, of course, your name, what you do, and if you work or whatever you do, please feel free to introduce yourself.
Okay. So hi everybody. I won't say good afternoon, good evening, or good morning because it depends on when you hear this, but I'll say hello. So my name is Keo Denea. I'm a Nigerian, based in United Kingdom, more around Kent, London, and I'm a communication consultant. When I say that I work for a lot of companies based around training, coaching, personal development, leadership support. I coach executives on communication techniques and tools. I work with companies and brands about their image, their message. And I've been fortunate enough to have a great company that's a branch out called Gold Standard International, registered in the UK, as well as in Nigeria, which is motherland, where I'm originally from. And I'm built with a drive and a passion to inspire change. And my key focus is cultural inclusion, emotional intelligence, and of course, personal development to try inspire human capital across the world, but starting with my great continent, Africa.
That's pretty interesting. I think you've left out in our earlier discussion. I think you left out something. You said you also train. What did you call it? People of faith.
So, unfortunately, with what I do, there's so many things you can't tell, but you can't tell names or you can't tell who. But with a lot of the great people I do sessions with, which is based on body language, message, tone, and what they say, they cover different areas. So sometimes some people in faith, some leaders in faith, some of the clients are CEOs, executives, managers, and the key thing is trying to look for ways in which they can get their message across, project confidence, let them feel comfortable in getting the message across, but most importantly, getting a buy-in for the people that are listening.
Okay. Just picking up from that introduction, I'm assuming you've been training with a lot of leaders, and perhaps you've trained African leaders. Yes. I'd just like to hear you out on what's your opinion, your honest opinion, your raw opinion on African leaders as possible.
Okay, so I will say this. So when we say African leaders, let me be very clear on something. I haven't trained any presidents. I haven't trained any ministers. So let's be clear. But I've been fortunate enough to be able to train different people in leadership positions across different parts of Africa. Sierra Leone, Ghana, Nigeria, 2-3 people across a few other places, but I'll keep the names away. But very much that. So what's the overall scope? I think there's this growing consent, and it almost seems very government focused, of the lack of inclusion. The Africa is at a very, very interesting point right now, and I'm saying Africa as a whole. One, because we have the youngest numbers youth-wise in the world. We have the richest raw materials worldwide, but we're missing a very important trick where we have the advantage of massive numbers of youths, while power seems to be held in a very old, or not in a rude way, an aging generation that have, one, not left a legacy. And because they haven't left the legacy, there's a fear of them being ignored as they grow older, that they're holding on to power and making a younger generation suffer in silence while they miss one of the greatest tricks of trying to invest back in the people to create legacy for themselves.
Okay, Christian, what do you have to say about the thoughts of, you said it's Keye.
Keye, yes.
Yeah. So I got it right. Christian, what do you have to, what do you think about what Mr. Keye has had to say?
Well, I agree with it, especially when it comes to leadership within Africa. As we spoke earlier about, like, when someone is speaking about what problems Africa faces, for instance, what's the issue of corruption in Africa, or what's the issue with regards maybe to voting. There has to be someone who is voicing these things, and I think when you speak to the leaders here, you can clearly tell there's a difference between this leader of this country compared to a leader of this other country. And not that they don't have the potential, but I think that there is more that can be done. So while one size does not fit all, some definitely do very well. And when you think about it, there are leaders in countries within Africa who have been statesmen. I mean, look at, well, okay, some people may disagree with to what extent they may be called statesmen, even across Africa, someone like Nelson Mandela. Some people may not agree, but generally, you can see like the sort of leader here he was then, transitioning South Africa from apartheid. And then, okay, and there are leaders across Africa of other different types of, whether it's in the corporate world and all that kind of thing. So there is potential, if you ask me, and there's some great minds and people who can lead. But is there a gap? There is, and is it sometimes, does it look like it's a generational gap, so that you find maybe sometimes there's a generation that seems to be doing better than the other? Possibly, but we could hear a bit more, on what might even be the cause of these differences in the sorts of leadership with generations. Is it because of the changing times, the forecast? Yeah, but that's my view.
Okay. Yeah, Chris, is it okay if I just try to top up on that?
Yes, feel free.
Now, while she was talking, I made some quick notes. And one of the key things that I feel we're missing across our great continent is we're missing the trick of getting people to tap into a chance of imagination. Now, you have a lot of great leaders across Africa doing different things. Please, let's not take that for granted. There are things being done. There are different movements affecting change here and there. But what seems to be happening is that it almost seems like we're not changing our approach. We're getting charity and loans from everybody. Most of our leaders, if not all of our leaders, are getting richer and richer. And where's the money going? They seem to be going overseas to foreign investment. Well, what I am saying, and I won't be rude or disrespectful, because I have not sat in the chair of power. Because they say with power comes a different responsibility. But part of what I was hoping a lot more leaders could do is the power of perception. We have a number of youths, why aren't we giving our youths a chance to dream of a better tomorrow? Why aren't we trying to bring in different cultural differences, making them unique and make them work for us? We forget that we're catering for a global audience. So that means our youths, our citizens, are not just looking at leaders. Thanks to social media, there's a global reach. So they see different places around the world and they know their governments can do better. You have the older generation who also are now not dependent on their leaders. They're making money in different ways without needing permission. And since they now can make money, they're now asking questions that our leaders cannot answer. And as you go across, Nigeria had EndSARS, there have been a few other things around the world that they're now responding with violence because they're too uncomfortable to answer simple questions. Leadership is not to control, it's to serve. And I think we need to bring those principles back to the table.
I hear you. Also, as you're talking previously, I'd taken down some notes. And I think you've sort of answered my question, because my question was going to be, how do we close this gap? Because I think we need a mental shift, a cultural shift of the people who are already in leadership. Because as you said rightly so, they're kind of spooked by how the younger generations are moving right now.
Yes.
And they end up resorting to violence. They end up resorting to underhand tactics. So my question would be, do you think the situation is ever going to change, or we're going to have to wait for nature to take its course and this generation of leadership to be phased out? Or it's something that we can actually gradually work upon and have a point of convergence a middle ground and actually change this, close this gap?
Okay. Now, the first thing I would say is that first and foremost, we need to start to have conversations like this. So this is first and foremost an amazing podcast, and I think a lot more conversations like this need to happen. Now, what can we do? Now, due to the concept like that, I've created something called Vote and Win. I've just launched it in Nigeria. I'm about to launch it in Sierra Leone. And what I'm trying to do is that it's almost like a 10-year plan. What it is that we need to start to plant dreams. We need to start to plant hope in the hearts of our youths. And what that simply means is that a lot of times we tend to wait for elections before we scream that we want a change, and we want to change now. But we forget the same way in agriculture and the same way in some of our faiths, there's a key important rule, which is there is seed time and harvest time. But if you don't plant, why are you in a hurry to expect harvest? And what I'm saying is that no one is planting hope. No one is planting dreams. Yes, we have motivational speakers to inspire. Who are speaking to the kids in the market? What are the visions they're going to inspire? Governments are missing. Yes, you might have got things wrong. But even when you look at the West, what are the distractions? If things get really bad in the West, do you know what people will look at? They can go watch football. It will distract them. They can dream. That's why you have worldwide fans. Gambling is one of the highest growing things here in the West. They can get lost and gamble their last hope and hope to win the lottery. The national lottery is growing. But when you look at things like that, what are the class? They're the working class. So there's still an element of distraction which doesn't break society. But back home, let's look at it. What is the distraction the government is giving? Entertainment plays a major role. Communication plays a major role. But what I am saying is that we need to start to look for ways. Leaders need to first and foremost sit and look at the problem. Put together a young generation that can communicate with the growing generation. They need to start to see that, accept that they've made mistakes. We're not here to point fingers. We're here for a better tomorrow. Accept you've made mistakes and ask how we can work together. Leadership does not give you a rod to rule and bully. It gives you a chance to serve us and see how we, Africa, we've gone past the me leadership. It's a we movement. And the reason why I'm saying that is the younger generation are global audience. And if you have global thinking, me and you are talking, we've never met, but you're in Kenya and the UK. This is global. So imagine you can bring together diasporans here in different parts of the world and look for ways in which they can invest or work with people back home. Ways in which investment can now, rather than getting loans and different ways, make the country a marketable platform. Bring tourism, bring in security, sell the brand. If you type most African countries on Google, what will come out is crime, lack of security, different negative issues. Who is investing in the brand of the country online? Because all these things in the West, they invest the money in it. With every negative post you see online, there is about 10 positive posts to try to block it away. In social media, you can see videos and images of dead bodies on different social media platforms in Africa. You can't see that here. So the whole thing is we need to start as a government. We need to understand that, one, we have the numbers. You have the raw materials. You have the youth. Even if you close your borders and make the numbers cater for each other, a society can be built. But going around with a charity bowl and thinking that with every loan you get, it's going to make a way, you're just setting the younger generation up for slave trade in the 21st, in the 22nd, in the digital era. That's what it seems like we're leading to if we don't start to talk. Because we're going to be citizens of a country that is owned by another country because our governments have taken loans they've all kept in their foreign accounts.
Well, I think I have nothing useful to add to that. Only maybe something something that has crossed my mind in terms of also when you say modern day slave trade, also we as things such as the brain drain, you'd find I don't know about your country, but you'd find Kenyans who'd rather try their luck abroad, go start from nothing, as opposed to trying their luck in their own country because of such things happening. And I think for what I would say about our leaders, high time they understood that with great power comes also great responsibility. And they need to understand that the world is changing. Their worldview is not necessarily wrong. It might be right, but it's not in tandem with our worldview, the younger generation. So maybe that is something they need to take into consideration. I don't know what you think of Christian. Do you have anything to say about what Kay has just spoken about?
Yeah, actually, and I think to begin with, there's the point he made about dreaming and the sense of imagination, especially among the African population. And I recall at some point someone had asked a question on ResearchGate, a platform, asking what's the thing that's needed for the youthful population within Africa to be able to, like have a sense of imagination and a sense of direction that makes them want to be better. And I remember the discussion moved towards who do you hold up as your heroes? Who are your legends? Who are the people you raise up to say, you guys try and become like this person? And because this is a great person in our perspective, and if you try be like them, then that will be a win. So who are the people you hold up as winners? And then the discussion moved on to the online digital space of social media influencers, where someone was saying, so the heroes right now, the person you ask, a person who is aged anywhere between, let's say, 15 years old to like 35 years old, who do you consider like to be a great person? They will tell you like a social media personality, like I'm really trying to be a social media influencer. And if that's where the nothing wrong with just wanting to influence opinion and movement, but you see that's what has happened, is that someone now is left without like someone to look up to and say, this is a person who is my mentor, this is a person who I'm hoping, imagining and dreaming to become. And you're left to look at who is your hero on your Instagram account. And what really has happened, sometimes someone can drift to the right direction depending on who you follow there. Other times it's not possible. But what has happened also, there's also a lot of because social media being what it is that it's not a real life story. You can manipulate the outcome of how you look on photos, on how you look on videos. So someone is left disoriented. You're left even disillusioned because you can never quite attain to that standard that you see lived out, whether it's on a reality TV show or whether it's like on a social media platform. So now what the population of most youthful people has been left dreaming to become is an image that they can never attain to. So I think that's what I picked from the comments on like having to dream and having maybe someone to look up to, which if you ask me is quite a sad reality that we are living in because of the situation as is, following a lifestyle that's really not possible to attain, or very few people can attain it. Yeah, Chris.
I think just what I can say to that is no one posts their losses on social media. And if they do, they're milking it.
Sorry, Chris, there's something I saw. There's a TV show I was watching 3 days ago. And the reason why I had to mention it based on the social media aspect. Now, I saw a post and someone was saying that some people all wearing Gucci labels. The wealthy people don't wear labels. That's true. But then one of the posts you then see is that they had a picture of Zuckerberg, the owner of Facebook, and had a picture of some guy. And they said the guy's jacket was 200 pounds, this person, and Zuckerberg's thing was 5 pounds. Now, please, let me just make something clear. If you do your research well, Zuckerberg's T-shirt that looks like a rubbish T-shirt. They're custom-made T-shirts, and they cost about $400, at least $400 each. So one of the things I try to tell people is this: try not let social media bully you into being yourself, but you need to be clear of who yourself is. That's very important.
Yeah, I'm surprised you'd get a T-shirt for $400 and it's not a label.
No, let me give you a secret. Let me give you a secret. And Christian, I'm very sure you might know about this. As clothes start to become more expensive, the label starts to get smaller. So I'll give an example. If you look at a woman's Louis Vuitton bag, when it's under the 500, 600 pound mark, you see the Louis Vuitton everywhere, big names. But the moment it starts to enter the 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, it starts to disappear. So please understand this. The big labels are mainly for mass market to help them keep marketing it. The moment things start to become expensive, it becomes exclusive. The labels get smaller because you've paid for the labels disappearing. Check it. But as things become more expensive, the labels become smaller and they become more exclusive.
Interesting. So some of my friends are always in big labels. So I think lastly, from my side, the question to be from my side lastly would be, so after having all this discussion, what do you project? What do you see any hope in terms of our leadership, in terms of corporate leadership, political leadership, the corporate, I mean also business? Do you see any hope? Is that time for especially our generation to catch up and is that time for change in Africa?
So first things first, yes. Because if there wasn't time, trust me, you won't be having this podcast. I know you could do the podcast about 1,000,001 other things, but most importantly, you have faith at this time. Chrissy has faith at this time, and that's the reason why we're all sitting here. Now, what part of what I would really go old fashioned. We need to start by rediscovering who we are as a people. Understand our history, understand where we've come from. Why is that important? If you have a foundation, it's easy to build on. But when you're being told that your foundation is poverty, you almost feel like you're poverty. Now, everyone gets carried away with the whole hype of investors coming down, and you have a post of a Kenyan digital platform. They got this investment of this. That's amazing and that's great. And may a lot more of those happen. But understand, we all cannot be the same thing. People need to start to celebrate their differences. And if your field is just to sell granite, do you people have granite? We call it granite in Nigeria. Do you have granite, or do you have granite in Kenya? If one's calling is to sell a mug, focus and sell that mug. Don't try be a digital person. I think what is going on right now is that because everybody's looking for quick money, we're not focused, and different areas are suffering because we're trying to aim towards the money. The first thing is we need to focus on understanding who our audience are. Start to focus on ways in which we can start to let our kids see beyond just money. Then we need to then start to have conversations with our leaders, because we've noticed that the moment we argue, the moment we debate with them, we tend to lose it. So we need to find another way to get these conversations through, which means more younger people need to get involved in politics. More younger people need to work within the government. Because if you're not at the table, you cannot make decisions. But if you're at the table, you can whisper and influence decisions. We also need to start to understand that with the digital era comes a digital audience, which means if you're not getting what you want in your certain country or community, there's always another community that's a digital search away. You can do business within the continent. You can look for investors rather than it being angel investors. Start small. Speak to people. But the key pointers I would honestly leave this with is literally say this. I believe that for us to start to get change, our governments need to work on some key things. They need to start to let people have hope again. Our churches, our mosques need to get involved. Reason why is because come Sunday, come Friday, people would always move to their houses of faith to look for hope. And I think the churches and the mosques need to start to play major roles. If they want to dream, don't just tell people that you need to pray for a miracle. Work with them for that miracle. Be part of their growth. Don't just tell them to pray, because when a pastor needs a car, he knows what to say. Then let your people know the importance of it. So I think we need to go back to what has made us great people. Go back to the community. Start the conversations. I like, did you see her cheeky smile? Because I said pastor and car. Did you see her smile? So I really think we need to go back to the grassroots. Start with the communities. Start to build the little things. You don't have to be the biggest champion, but you need to be a champion of one, and that starts to pay itself forward. But we need to start to speak to our government, and that's why I've started my initiative, Vote and Win. And the whole goal behind Vote and Win is we're trying to plant seeds across the nation, from billboards to radio discussions. Then we're trying to start to look for ways in which we can now start to have sessions with our people in power. So what are you doing? Let's have a conversation about what the future looks like for you. Can we hold you accountable? But we need the discussions. We need to have digital things where you can have almost 50 people and let our leaders, our communities tell us what they're doing for the year and ask if we can come back for updates on what they're doing. And rather than insult them that they haven't done something, we volunteer ourselves on how can we make things work better. Because if we don't get onto that table, I say within the next 10, 15 years, you start to have African countries lose ownerships, and the loans our leaders have taken would then mean that we're being owned by a different nation. And I think it's already started. China, I think now, I think their predictions the next, 10 years, at least 2 or 3 African nations are actually, due to the loans that have been taken, will be owned by a foreign nation. So the conversation needs to start now.
I think I fully agree with you. Holding people accountable. I think for the benefit of our listeners and viewers, we are not saying the young generation just comes in and takes over fully.
Oh no.
We also have incidences where you leave power and leadership positions to the young people, and they cannot be held accountable.
Yeah,
they come in with the wrong. I call it the wrong type of hunger, whereby it's only about themselves and not about the people. But I fully agree with you where we need to have these conversations. We need to be, when we are presented with the opportunity to actually elect our leaders, we need to make this decision consciously at the ballot. So because we see in most countries, voter apathy is amongst the younger generations. People would rather be doing something else as opposed to voting on that particular day. But they should take this opportunity to elect the leaders. You'd be able to elect a leader who you would know would be able to give you a seat at the table, be able to listen to you, would be able to have this conversation with you, as opposed to letting the perennial guys being elected into government since the days of our grandfathers, and you'd expect change. You won't get this change. No. So I think from my side, I'm in full agreement with you. And I don't know if Nigeria, you're going to the elections soon.
Oh, that's the reason we have elections next year. So Nigeria and Sierra Leone, which is the reason why we've launched Vote and Win. So it's voteandwin.com.ng, and we're going to launch the same thing with Sierra Leone. And the goal is we need to start to trigger the conversations. We're trying to, our goal is between now and the next 10 years, start to actually motivate more young people, and most importantly, women, to start to go into positions, start from local grassroots, build up your following, and then slowly ease yourself into government. And we need some fresh faces. We need some fresh blood. Blood being, when we say blood, we tend to mean that as young ideas, young thinkers, and get them involved. Speak to diasporans. If you're going to invest in the local government chairman, invest in the local councillor. Rather than try to look for the governor or the commissioners, start with the grassroots. And if we plan with time, the seeds we plant today would be our presidents and our leaders that would change our nations tomorrow. But we need to start to plant today. We can't hope, we can't wish. We need to take the steps today.
Thank you. For Kenya, I don't know if it's a bit too late, but we have elections in 3 months. But we can try as well. How we can go about it and talk to any young Kenyan who has a voter's card out there. Go vote, go elect somebody, not necessarily young in terms of age, but they're thinking, they're progressive, they can help you make a change. For my side, Keye Oduneye, thank you for honoring us with your presence, and we wish to have many more conversations with you.
It's our world. I'm not going anywhere. So as long as when the phone rings, I would show up. Well, please, sorry, one quick thing you said in Kenya. Can people please go volunteer with their parties? Reason why it's important, the moment your party gets in power, you might have an opportunity to work with the government in power. That's a major role. We want to get in there, let's volunteer. So when they get in power, they introduce us into roles. So it's not too late with Kenya, but get involved. It's important.
Thank you. Over to you, Kristen.
Okay, thanks a lot for coming by today. There's a lot you've said in the closing remarks that I hope we could follow up on the discussion. But vote and win, I think, is an incredible idea, especially because it gives almost motivation to someone who is wondering, how can I make a change? And you coming along with ideas of how this can be done. I think that's really good. But then I also liked what you said about that it's a digital community, that if the idea that you're having in Kenya doesn't seem to be popular, you can, as long as it's a viable idea, try it out in Tanzania. I mean, it's the same way we're having this conversation here, and which is what we are trying to do through Africa iShare, is to have individuals across African countries sharing their ideas and looking for where their idea can work, where they can be innovative and creative. So I really like that also, and I think we should have a follow-up discussion, especially when you say it's important to understand where we are coming from, as especially within the African continent. And the thing that I think anyone who lives in the UK notices is that there's a very good history of like the kings who came to power when. There's a very well laid out history. The kings are buried at a specific place. There's a track of history. When you come to Africa, I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and we asked, when we were trying to trace your generation, you possibly go maybe to your great grandmother or great grandmother. You don't go past that. So there's almost and increasingly even that will be lost. So there's a lack of preservation of that history of true history of where we came from. You read in history books things about where like different African people came from, but when you actually are asked as Chris yourself, what's your history? I mean, how many generations back can you go to? It's quite interesting, I think, to have that conversation. I mean, I don't think there's ancestry.com in that relates like to African countries where you can trace your ancestry. But
business idea.
Yeah. So I actually think it's quite interesting. But there's been quite a lot that you've spoken about that I think needs to be revisited, and also about religion within Africa. Someone once came to the podcast and told us they think the reason why Africa is not developed is because of the religion. They think that it's too much. So
religion is the opium of the poor.
Yeah. So there's quite a lot there. But I think for tonight, we will end it here. And thank you so much for coming by. We hope our listeners and our viewers will find this helpful. You can leave your comments. You can come join us in future discussions. And we hope to do this again. As always, thanks, Chris. And we look forward to having another discussion in the future with you, Keye. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.